Human beings suck at completing stress cycles, all kinds, all intensities. There is a spectrum of stress, but we tend to really focus only on traumatic stress, which is the response to an overwhelming, shocking emotional situation, whether it's actual or threatened, whether it's happening to you or you're just watching someone. Then we have post traumatic stress, which are the symptoms that happen after the event, the aftermath. So for me, after my panic attack, I was crying in public because my system is still working through the process of coming down from having so much cortisol and adrenaline flooding through my system. So it can be any host of symptoms post traumatic stress. Then there's post traumatic stress disorder, which there are so many criteria that need to be satisfied for that diagnosis. But one of the criteria is when those symptoms, post traumatic stress symptoms, last longer than a month. Traumatic stress is real, it can and will happen in life. And there's another point on the stress spectrum that's almost more dangerous because it's sneaky. It's that everyday non-specific stress response to any demand for change. And that's a problem because by nature, two things. One, change is always happening, especially in the world we live in today, which is also set up to reward like producing and manufacturing and busy being busy. It's also a huge problem because by nature, human beings are lazy. We are designed to conserve energy. We're meant to exist in a parasympathetic state, rest and digest. Our limbic system can't always decipher whether the change is good or bad. So, again, to conserve energy, it just resists all change, which means we're at odds with ourselves. Our bodies are always trying to absorb and make sense of all this critical information and what's going on in the world around me. Meanwhile, our brains are telling us to make the most of our time by pushing harder and going faster. And because all of that is biological, it's largely outside of our awareness. So we end up walking around feeling like edgy and unsatisfied and unfulfilled. And we can't really put our finger on why. It's like nothing's wrong, but something ain't right. And that's when we start to doubt ourselves, and imposter syndrome can creep in, and our relationships start to suffer, and we just start having a really crappy experience of life. Our thinking brain is designed to solve problems and plan for a future it can predict. So it's always looking for evidence that everything is going to go absolutely according to plan and there'll be no risk at all. It thrives on data, patterns, information, and knowing. And it gets that information from past memories or from thinking about and planning for situations that haven't happened yet. The mind's job is to keep things spicy. It's going to replay drama and situations. Oh, I should have said this, and next time I'm going to say that. It's constantly creating storylines and narratives to keep our attention so that we stay at the ready. It wants us in a low key, hypervigilant state. And it doesn't think about the biological effects to our body, the slow drip of cortisol and adrenaline. And the brain is a muscle, and thinking moves glucose. So it's just like doing curls, which is why even though we're designed to conserve energy and be in a thinking state, the brain is like draining itself. It's using just a massive amount of energy. It's a race to the bottom. The brain isn't the villain, but it's also definitely not the hero. It can't be trusted because it has an agenda and it lives in a time warp. So we run around hustling and rushing and focusing and trying to get to these goals and these deadlines and these milestones, and then we barely pause to acknowledge them, which means we never fully complete the stress cycle and effort that it took to get there. It doesn't take long for us to lose touch with our natural rhythm and cadence, and then we're exhausted, scattered, and overwhelmed. The more we rush and react and produce and just go through life, the more disconnected we become, and we become more comfortable following external advice and organizational charts than tuning into and trusting ourselves. Unconsciously, we relieve ourselves of our own intuition and having our own discernment process. And in doing so, we self abandon. But there's part of the stress spectrum that doesn't get talked about a lot, and it's called post traumatic growth. Not everyone who goes through stress and trauma comes out worse for wear. You can convert that stress into sovereign power and resilience and actually learn and grow from what happened. But that doesn't just happen. We don't learn from our experiences, we learn from reflecting on our experiences. And resilience doesn't happen in the stretch, it happens in the savor. Human beings are actually brilliant. We're built to process and be with big and overwhelming experiences. Think about how great you feel after a big belly laugh or a giant snotty cry. But when we're only living from the neck up, we get stuck, or something gets stuck or unprocessed or unintegrated, and we're in this cycle. And that leads not only to a whole bunch of health problems, but just a generally painful experience of life. Pausing breaks the cycle of blind ambition. It's where we collect ourselves and reorient and reconnect to our own game plan, our own mile markers, and our own measures of success. When we bring the element of consciousness to our pause, it becomes a sacred act, and our body and our spirit catch up to each other. We reset and return to factory settings and literally become more congruent. Your senses will start to sharpen, and you'll start to notice things maybe you didn't before. You'll find yourself more creative and courageous and authentic because you're not living on autopilot. Now, heads up, when this happens, you do start to, it's like a whole new world opens up of clarity, and it can be confronting and it can be overwhelming. And the default can be to just go back to being busy because even though it's not comfortable, it's familiar. Don't do that. There's no universal fix or 5 step framework for this. Learning to pause is a journey of self discovery. And so every time you sit, even just for a second longer, with that discomfort and that overwhelm, it gets easier and your resilience expands. Pausing isn't taking your foot off the gas, it's putting fuel in your tank. So don't be too busy driving to stop and get gas. You're never going to find the time to pause. You're going to have to carve it out. And that may feel disobedient and rebellious and like you're making a really unpopular choice. And I'll tell you what, do it anyway. The world doesn't need to be changed by you, it will be changed through you. When you shift internally, everything external shifts. Friends, if you dig this content and you want more, hit that subscribe button and click that bell. And please engage with this post. I promise I will engage back. And if you want the even more real and you want first dibs before the rest of the world gets its hands on it, subscribe to Letters from Kenny. I'll leave that link in the show notes.